The phone buzzed at exactly 5:17 a.m., dragging me from the kind of deep sleep you only get after 16 hours of laying hardwood floors. My name's Jack Devlin, and I've been swinging hammers and running electrical wire through Maine houses for the better part of 20 years. My hands are calloused, my back aches most mornings, and I've got sawdust permanently embedded under my fingernails. But I'm good at what I do, and I sleep the sleep of honest work. Until that morning. The text glowed on my phone screen like a neon sign in a dark alley. Something came up. I'll explain soon. Relax. From my wife, Erica. I stared at those words, my brain slowly grinding into gear. Erica Devlin, 36 years old, project manager at TechFlow Solutions, the kind of woman who color codes her calendar and hasn't missed a yoga class in 3 years. The kind of woman who doesn't just disappear at 5 a.m. without explanation. I rolled over to her side of the bed. Cold sheets. The pillow still held the faint scent of her expensive shampoo, but it was clear she'd been gone for hours. Relax, I muttered to the empty room. Sure, honey. I'll just relax while you're out doing God knows what with God knows who. See, here's the thing about being married to someone for 12 years. You develop a sixth sense about their bullshit. And this text? This reeked of grade A, organic, free-range bullshit. I padded downstairs to the kitchen of our Victorian fixer-upper, a house I'd been renovating room by room for the past 8 years. The coffee maker gurgled to life as I replayed the last few weeks in my head. Erica working late. Erica taking mysterious phone calls that ended abruptly when I walked into the room. Erica suddenly interested in girls' nights out with friends she'd barely mentioned before. The coffee tasted bitter, or maybe that was just my mood. By 6 a.m., I'd made my decision. I wasn't going to sit around like some chump waiting for my wife to grace me with an explanation. If Erica wanted to play games, I'd play along, but I'd be playing by my rules. I scrolled through my contacts and found Megan Torres, Erica's self-proclaimed best friend and partner in crime. Megan answered on the third ring, her voice thick with sleep and what sounded like a hangover. Jack? Jesus, what time is it? Early, I said. Where's Erica? A pause. Too long of a pause. What do you mean? Isn't she at home? Megan, cut the crap. She texted me at 5 saying something came up. I'm assuming you know where she is. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Another pause. I could practically hear the gears turning in Megan's head, trying to figure out what story she was supposed to tell. I don't know, Jack. Maybe she had a work emergency? At 5 in the morning? On a Saturday? Look, I'm sure there's a perfectly reasonable explanation. I hung up. Strike one for Megan. Either she was lying, or she genuinely didn't know where Erica was. Given Megan's track record, I was betting on the former. Next, I tried Sarah Chen from Erica's yoga class. Sarah was the type who knew everyone's business and wasn't shy about sharing it. Oh, Jack! Sarah's voice was bright and chirpy, even at this ungodly hour. How are you? How's the house coming along? It's fine, Sarah. Listen, is Erica with you? She mentioned something about an early morning yoga session. Yoga? At this hour? Oh, no, honey. Our Saturday class isn't until 10. I haven't seen Erica since Thursday. Strike two. I was reaching for my phone to try another number when I heard the distinctive sound of Mrs. Haynes's screen door slamming shut next door. Gladys Haynes, 73 years old, insomniac, and the unofficial neighborhood watch coordinator. If anyone had seen anything unusual, it would be her. I threw on a jacket and stepped outside. The October air bit at my face, carrying the smell of dying leaves and the distant salt tang of the Atlantic. Mrs. Haynes was on her porch, wrapped in a pink bathrobe and nursing a cup of tea. "Morning, Gladys," I called out. She looked up, her sharp eyes taking in my rumpled appearance and undoubtedly reading the situation like a book. "Morning, Jack. You're up early?" "Yeah, well, couldn't sleep. Hey, You didn't happen to see Erica leave this morning, did you? Mrs. Haynes set down her teacup with deliberate care. No, dear, but I did see her car parked down by Riverside Drive last night, around 11, maybe 11:30. My stomach dropped. Riverside Drive was where the fancy hotels were, the kind of place you took someone when you wanted privacy. Was she alone? Mrs. Haynes's expression grew carefully neutral. I couldn't say for certain. It was dark, and I was just taking Buster out for his evening walk. But her tone said everything her words didn't. I thanked her and went back inside, my mind racing. Riverside Drive, hotels, a mysterious text at 5 a.m. The pieces were starting to form a picture, and I didn't like what I was seeing. I spent the next hour doing what any reasonable husband would do in this situation. I turned into a detective. I went through Erica's home office with the methodical precision I usually reserved for electrical work. Bills, work documents, yoga schedules, grocery lists, nothing unusual. Then I hit the jackpot. Hidden behind her jewelry box in our bedroom closet was a second phone, a cheap prepaid flip phone that I'd never seen before. My hands shook as I powered it on and scrolled through the messages. The first few were innocent enough. Coordination about meeting times, complaints about work, the usual mundane stuff. But as I scrolled back further, the tone changed. Can't wait to see you tonight. Room 237. Jack's working late again. We have until midnight. This is getting complicated. Maybe we should tell him. Not yet. I'm not ready to blow up my life. And then, the most recent exchange from last night. Meet me at the Riverside Inn. We need to talk. About what? About us, about what happens next. I'll be there by 11. The phone slipped from my numb fingers and clattered to the floor. 12 years of marriage. 12 years of building a life together, renovating this house room by room, talking about kids we never had, dreams we never quite achieved. And she was throwing it all away for what? Some excitement? Some fantasy of a different life? I picked up my own phone and typed out a response to her 5 a.m. text. No need to explain. Stay with him. You're single now. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I sat on the edge of our bed, my bed now, and waited. The response came faster than I expected. My phone rang within minutes, Erica's name flashing on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. And again. By the fourth call, the voicemails were getting frantic. Jack, please pick up. It's not what you think. Jack, we need to talk. I'm coming home. Jack, please. I can explain everything. 20 minutes after my text, I heard a car door slam in the driveway. Then footsteps running up the front porch steps. Then the sound of a key trying to fit into a lock that no longer recognized it. I'd changed the locks 2 hours ago. The pounding started immediately. Jack! Jack! Open the door! Please, we need to talk! I walked to the front window and looked out. Erica stood on the porch in last night's clothes. A black dress I'd never seen before, heels that were definitely not her usual practical flats. Her makeup was smeared, her hair disheveled. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman who'd spent the night somewhere she shouldn't have been. Jack, please. She was crying now, her fist beating against the solid oak door I'd installed myself. It's not what you think. Let me explain. I opened the window just wide enough to speak through. New locks, Erica. Go back to your boyfriend. Her face crumpled. Jack, no, please. It's over. Whatever you think happened, it's over now. I choose you. I choose us. Funny, I said, my voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest. You didn't choose us last night, or the night before that, or any of the other nights you've been sneaking around with your secret phone in your hotel rooms. Her face went white. You found the phone. I found a lot of things. Room 237 at the Riverside Inn. Really classy, Erica, really classy. Jack, please. I made a mistake, a huge mistake, but it's over now. I ended it. That's why I was out so early. I was ending it. I almost laughed. At 5 in the morning? You were ending it at 5 in the morning? He didn't take it well. We talked all night. I was trying to make him understand that I couldn't do this anymore. That I love you. That I love our life. Our life? Now I did laugh, a bitter sound that seemed to echo off the porch walls. What life, Erica? The life where you lie to me every day? The life where you sneak around behind my back? The life where you keep a secret phone hidden in our bedroom? She was sobbing now, mascara running down her cheeks in black streams. I know I screwed up, I know I hurt you, but please, Jack, please don't do this. Don't throw away 12 years because I made a mistake. I'm not throwing away 12 years, I said, my hand moving to close the window. You already did that. I shut the window and walked away, leaving her crying on the porch. Within an hour, her car was gone and the house was quiet again. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I spent the rest of Saturday doing what I do best, working with my hands and thinking with my head. I had a bathroom renovation project that needed finishing, and there's something therapeutic about tearing out old tile when your world is falling apart. By Sunday morning, I had a plan. First stop, Big Joe's Marina. Joe Castellano and I had served together in Afghanistan, back when we were young and stupid enough to think we were invincible. Now Joe ran a small marina on the coast, fixing boat engines and dispensing advice to anyone who'd listen. He was also the closest thing I had to a best friend. I found him in his workshop, elbow deep in an outboard motor that had seen better days. He looked up when I walked in, took one look at my face, and reached for the coffee pot. That bad? He asked, pouring 2 cups of coffee that could strip paint. Worse? I told him everything. The phone, the texts, the hotel, Erica's dramatic performance on my front porch. Joe listened without interrupting, occasionally grunting or shaking his head. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. So, what's the plan? He finally asked. I need to know who he is. You don't know? The texts don't use names, just baby and honey and other nauseating pet names, but I'm going to find out. Joe nodded slowly. You want some help? I was hoping you'd ask. We spent the next hour going through Erica's social media accounts. Joe had a talent for this kind of digital detective work, a skill he'd picked up during his brief stint as a private investigator after leaving the army. Look at this, Joe said, pointing to Erica's Instagram. 3 weeks ago, she posted a picture from some tech conference in Portland, tagged a bunch of people. I leaned over his shoulder to look. There was Erica, smiling and holding a cocktail, surrounded by a group of people in expensive suits. The caption read, "Amazing networking event. So great to reconnect with old friends." Old friends, I muttered. That's what she's calling them now. Joe clicked through the tagged profiles. Most were generic corporate types, all polished smiles and motivational quotes. But one caught my attention immediately. Trevor Lang. 34 years old, founder and CEO of LangTech Solutions, a software company based in Boston. In his profile picture, he was leaning against a vintage Mustang, wearing a smile that screamed trust fund baby. This guy, I said, pointing at the screen. Joe clicked on Trevor's profile. The guy was everything I wasn't. Polished, wealthy, the kind of man who wore suits that cost more than I made in a month. His Instagram was full of pictures from expensive restaurants, exotic vacations, and charity galas where he posed with local politicians and business leaders. Looks like a real winner, Joe said dryly. I scrolled through Trevor's posts, looking for any sign of Erica. I found it 3 posts down, a picture from the same tech conference, but taken from a different angle. In the background, barely visible, were Erica and Trevor standing close together, his hand on her lower back. Son of a bitch, I breathed. Joe leaned back in his chair. So what now? You going to confront him? Not yet. First, I want to know more about Mr. Trevor Lang. A lot more. The next few days fell into a routine. I'd work during the day, tearing apart old houses and putting them back together better than before. In the evenings, I'd research Trevor Lang with the obsessive focus of a man with nothing left to lose. I learned that Trevor had started his company 5 years ago with family money. His father was some kind of real estate mogul in Boston. His mother came from old New England money. Trevor himself had gone to Harvard, majored in computer science, and had been featured in several local business magazines as one of Boston's 30 under 30 rising stars. He was also engaged. Her name was Amanda Richardson, daughter of a Massachusetts state senator. They'd been together for 2 years, engaged for 6 months. The wedding was planned for next spring at some exclusive country club in the Berkshires. I wondered if Amanda knew about her fiancé's extracurricular activities. Meanwhile, Erica had been trying to reach me constantly. Phone calls, text messages, emails, even a handwritten letter slipped under my door. I ignored them all. Whatever she had to say, I wasn't interested in hearing it. But I was interested in what she was telling other people. On Wednesday evening, I drove to Duffy's Pub, the local Irish bar where half the town went to drink and gossip. I wasn't much of a drinker, but Duffy's was also where Erica's friends liked to hang out on weeknight. I found Megan Torres at the bar, nursing a cosmopolitan and complaining loudly to anyone who'd listen about her latest dating disaster. She looked up when I walked in, her expression immediately shifting to guilty concern. "Jack," she said, sliding off her bar stool. "How are you holding up?" "I'm fine," I said, ordering a beer. "How's Erica?" Megan's eyes darted around the bar nervously. She's staying with me for a few days, just until you two work things out." "Work things out?" I took a long sip of my beer. "Is that what she told you? That we're working things out?" "She said there was a misunderstanding, that you jumped to conclusions." I almost choked on my beer. "A misunderstanding. Right. Look, Jack, I know you're hurt, but Erica loves you. She made a mistake, but—" "Megan," I interrupted, "how long have you known about Trevor?" The color drained from her face. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. Trevor Lang, Boston tech guy, Harvard education, trust fund, vintage Mustang. Ring any bells?" Megan's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. "Jack, How long?" I asked again, my voice quiet but firm. She looked around the bar again, as if hoping someone would rescue her from this conversation. When no help appeared, she slumped back onto her bar stool. 6 months, she whispered. "Maybe 7. 7 months. Erica had been cheating on me for 7 months, and her best friend had known about it the entire time. "Did you help her?" I asked. "Cover for her when she was with him?" Megan's silence was answer enough. I finished my beer in one long swallow and stood up. "Tell Erica I said hello, and tell her that the divorce papers will be ready by Friday." I left Megan sitting at the bar, staring into her cosmopolitan like it held the answers to all of life's problems. But I wasn't done for the night. I drove to the Riverside Inn, the hotel where Erica and Trevor had been meeting. It was one of those boutique places that charged 3 times what a room was worth because they put mints on the pillows and called it luxury. The night manager was a kid who looked like he was barely old enough to drink, let alone run a hotel. But he was also the type who was easily impressed by a $50 bill and a story about a cheating wife. "Room 237?" he said, glancing around nervously. "Yeah, I remember. They've been coming in every couple of weeks for months. Always paid cash, always left early in the morning." "Always?" "Well, until this weekend. Saturday morning, there was a lot of yelling. The woman left around 5 crying. The guy didn't check out until noon, and he looked like he'd been hit by a truck." So Erica had been telling the truth about one thing. She had ended it Saturday morning. But that didn't change anything. 7 months of lies, 7 months of betrayal, 7 months of making me look like a fool in front of the entire town. I drove home through the quiet streets of our small Maine town, past houses I'd worked on, past neighbors who probably already knew more about my marriage than I did. Small towns are like that. Secrets spread faster than gossip, and gossip spreads faster than wildfire. When I got home, there was another letter from Erica wedged in my door. I didn't bother reading it. I tossed it in the fireplace along with all the others and watched 12 years of marriage go up in smoke. But as I sat there watching the flames, an idea began to form. A plan that would give Erica and Trevor exactly what they deserved. If they wanted drama, I'd give them drama. If they wanted their secret relationship exposed, I'd make sure the whole world knew about it. And if they thought they could humiliate me and walk away unscathed, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. Thursday morning, I made my first move. I'd spent most of the night in my basement workshop, not building anything, just thinking, planning. The workshop had always been my sanctuary, a place where I could work with my hands and let my mind wander. Tonight, it felt more like a war room. By dawn, I knew exactly what I was going to do. First, I called my lawyer, Dave Morrison. Dave and I had gone to high school together, and he'd handled the legal work when I'd bought the house. He was a good guy, honest, and he didn't ask unnecessary questions. "Jack," he said when I walked into his office at 8 a.m. sharp. "I heard about you and Erica. I'm sorry, man." "Don't be sorry yet," I said. "I need divorce papers drawn up, and I need them today." Dave raised an eyebrows. "That's pretty fast. You sure you don't want to try counseling first? Sometimes these things can be worked out." "Dave, my wife has been sleeping with another man for 7 months. She kept a secret phone to coordinate their hotel meetings. Her best friend covered for her. Half the town probably knew before I did." I leaned forward in my chair. "Trust me, this isn't the kind of thing that gets worked out in counseling." Dave nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll need some information about assets, debts, that sort of thing. The house is in my name. I bought it before we got married, and I've done all the renovation work myself. We have a joint checking account with about $15,000. She's got her own car, her own retirement account from work. This should be pretty straightforward." "What about alimony?" I smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. "She makes more money than I do. If anyone deserves alimony, it's me." Dave spent the next hour taking notes and asking questions. By the time I left his office, he'd promised to have papers ready by 5 p.m. My next stop was the bank. The joint checking account had been Erica's idea. "It'll be easier to manage household expenses," she'd said. What she hadn't said was that it would also be easier for her to finance her affair. I withdrew half the money, $7,500, and closed the account. The bank manager, a middle-aged woman who'd known both Erica and me for years, looked uncomfortable but processed the transaction without comment. Then I went to our cell phone provider and had Erica's phone disconnected. Her work phone would still function, but her personal line, the one she'd been using to coordinate with Megan and God knows who else, was now dead. By lunchtime, I was feeling better than I had in days. But I was just getting started. I drove to TechFlow Solutions, the small software company where Erica worked as a project manager. The building was one of those generic office parks that had sprung up around Portland in the last decade, all glass and steel and artificial landscaping. I didn't go inside. Instead, I parked across the street and waited. Erica emerged at 12:30, right on schedule. She was with 2 other women from her office, probably heading out for their usual lunch at the trendy salad place down the street. She looked tired, stressed, like she hadn't been sleeping well. Good. I followed them at a distance, not because I wanted to spy on her lunch conversation, but because I wanted to see her car. Erica drove a red Honda Civic that she'd bought new 3 years ago. It was her pride and joy, always perfectly clean, always parked in the shade to protect the paint. While she was at lunch, I called Rodriguez Towing, a company I'd worked with on several construction projects. The owner, Miguel Rodriguez, owed me a favor from a job I'd done on his house last summer. "Miguel, it's Jack Devlin. I need a car towed." "Sure thing, Jack. What's the situation?" "It's complicated. The car belongs to my wife, but it's parked illegally, and I want it removed." Miguel was quiet for a moment. "Jack, I can't tow a car just because you're having marital problems." "The car is parked in a no-parking zone," I said, which was technically true. There was a small sign that prohibited parking in that particular spot for more than 2 hours. And I'm the one who's been making the payments on it. That was also technically true. The car payments came out of our joint checking account, which I'd been funding with my construction income. "Where do you want it towed?" Miguel asked. "Your lot. I'll pick it up later." 20 minutes later, I watched from across the street as Miguel's tow truck hooked up Erica's Honda and drove away. I couldn't help but smile as I imagined her walking out of the restaurant to find an empty parking space. My phone rang as I was driving home. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. "You son of a bitch!" Erica's voice was shrill with rage. "You had my car towed." "Hello to you too, sweetheart. How was lunch?" "Jack, this isn't funny. I'm stranded at work. How am I supposed to get home?" "I don't know. Call your boyfriend. I'm sure he'd be happy to give you a ride." "My boyfriend?" Her voice cracked. "Jack, I told you. That's over. I ended it." "Right. You ended it. After 7 months. After lying to me every single day for 7 months. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you. But this is crazy, Jack. Having my car towed, disconnecting my phone, this isn't you." "You're right," I said. The old me would have sat at home feeling sorry for myself while you and Trevor laughed about what a pathetic fool I was. But the new me fights back. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Trevor," she said finally. "How do you know about Trevor?" "I know a lot of things, Erica. I know he's from Boston. I know he's engaged to some senator's daughter. I know he drives a vintage Mustang and thinks he's God's gift to the business world. I know you two have been meeting at the Riverside Inn every couple of weeks for the past 7 months. Another silence. "Jack, please. We need to talk. Face to face. I can explain everything." "There's nothing to explain. Dave Morrison is drawing up divorce papers as we speak. You can have your lawyer contact him." "Divorce papers?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Jack, no, please. Don't do this." "I'm not doing anything, Erica. You did this. You made these choices. Now you get to live with the consequences." I hung up and turned off my phone. By evening, word had spread through town like wildfire. Mrs. Haynes called to check on me. Big Joe stopped by with a 6-pack and a sympathetic ear. Even Dave Morrison called to say he'd heard from 3 different people that Erica Devlin's car had been towed from her office parking lot. "Small town," he said when he delivered the divorce papers. "News travels fast." "Let it travel," I said. "I'm done hiding." But Erica wasn't done fighting. Friday morning, I woke up to find her sitting on my front porch steps, still wearing yesterday's clothes. She looked like she'd been there all night. "We need to talk," she said when I opened the door. "No, we don't." "Jack, please. 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes to explain." Against my better judgment, I stepped outside, but I didn't sit down, and I didn't invite her in. "You have 5 minutes," I said. She took a shaky breath. It started at that conference in Portland. I ran into Trevor. We went to college together, dated briefly our senior year. It was innocent at first, just catching up, talking about old times. Get to the point. He was charming, successful. He made me feel special, important, like I was more than just a small-town project manager married to a contractor. The words hit like a physical blow, but I kept my expression neutral. "He pursued me," she continued, "sent flowers to my office, called me, invited me to dinner. I said no at first, but he was persistent, and I was flattered. When was the last time someone pursued me like that, Jack? When was the last time you sent me flowers or took me somewhere expensive just because you wanted to impress me?" "So this is my fault?" "No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I was vulnerable. I felt taken for granted, invisible. So you decided to have an affair." "I decided to have dinner with an old friend. 1 dinner turned into 2, 2 turned into more. 7 months of more." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know how it sounds. I know how it looks, but Jack, it was never about love. It was about feeling wanted, feeling special. And now? Now I realize what an idiot I've been. Trevor doesn't want me, Jack. He wants the thrill of the affair. When I told him I was leaving you, when I said I wanted us to be together for real, he panicked. He reminded me that he's engaged, that he has a business to protect, a reputation to maintain. So you came crawling back to me. I came back because I realized that what we have is real. Trevor was a fantasy. You're my reality. You're my home. I looked at her sitting there on my porch steps, mascara smeared, hair disheveled, still beautiful despite everything. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Your 5 minutes are up, I said. Jack, please. You're right about one thing, Erica. I am your reality. And your reality is that you threw away 12 years of marriage for a fantasy. Your reality is that you lied to me every day for 7 months. Your reality is that you made me look like a fool in front of the entire town. I pulled the divorce papers from my jacket pocket and handed them to her. Your reality is that you're single now. Congratulations. You got what you wanted. She stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. I never wanted this, she whispered. Maybe not, but this is what you get. I went back inside and locked the door, leaving her sitting on the porch with the divorce papers in her lap. But I could see her through the window, and I could see the exact moment when she opened the papers and read the terms I'd negotiated with Dave. No alimony, no claim to the house, no claim to my business or my tools or any of the assets I'd accumulated before our marriage. She could keep her car, once she paid the towing fees, and her personal belongings. Everything else was mine. Her scream of rage could probably be heard 3 blocks away. And I smiled, because I was just getting started. Saturday morning brought an unexpected visitor. I was in the kitchen making coffee and planning my next move when someone knocked on my door. Not the frantic pounding that had become Erica's signature, but a firm, confident knock. I opened the door to find Trevor Lang standing on my porch. He was exactly what I'd expected. Tall, well-dressed, the kind of man who'd never done a day of manual labor in his life. He wore khakis and a polo shirt that probably cost more than most people's rent, and his vintage Mustang was parked in my driveway like a middle finger pointed at my 10-year-old pickup truck. Mr. Devlin, he said, extending a manicured hand. I'm Trevor Lang. I think we need to talk. I looked at his hand, but didn't shake it. I know who you are. May I come in? No. Trevor's smile faltered slightly, but he recovered quickly. I understand you're upset. You have every right to be. But I think there are some things you should know about the situation between Erica and myself. Such as? Such as the fact that it's over. Completely over. I ended things with her last weekend, and I have no intention of seeing her again. Congratulations. You want a medal? Trevor's composure cracked a little more. Look, I know this is awkward, but I wanted to speak to you man to man. What happened between Erica and me was a mistake. A moment of weakness that got out of hand. 7 months is a pretty long moment. I take full responsibility for my part in this. But I want you to know that I never intended for it to go as far as it did, and I certainly never intended for anyone to get hurt. I leaned against the doorframe, studying this polished, privileged man who thought he could charm his way out of any situation. So why are you here, Trevor? What do you want? I want to make this right. I'm prepared to compensate you for any inconvenience this situation may have caused. Compensate me? I'm a wealthy man, Mr. Devlin. I understand that divorce can be expensive emotionally and financially. I'd like to help with those costs. I stared at him for a long moment, trying to process what I was hearing. You want to pay me off? I want to help resolve this situation in a way that's beneficial for everyone involved. How much? Trevor reached into his jacket and pulled out a checkbook. I was thinking $50,000, enough to cover your legal fees and help you get back on your feet. $50,000. More money than I'd ever seen in one place. Enough to finish renovating the house, maybe even buy a new truck. All I had to do was take his money and pretend that the last 7 months had never happened. "That's a generous offer," I said. Trevor's smile returned, confident and smug. "I'm a generous man. I believe in taking care of problems before they become bigger problems." "Problems?" I repeated. "Is that what you call sleeping with my wife for 7 months? A problem?" "A situation that got out of hand," Trevor corrected, "but one that can be resolved quietly and amicably." I nodded slowly, as if I was considering his offer. "You know what, Trevor? You're right. This is a problem. And you're right that it needs to be resolved." I could see the relief in his eyes. He thought he'd won. Thought he could buy his way out of this mess, just like he'd probably bought his way out of every other mess in his privileged life. "But here's the thing," I continued. "I don't want your money." The smile froze on his face. "What I want is for you to understand something. You didn't just sleep with my wife. You didn't just have an affair. You helped destroy a 12-year marriage. You helped turn the woman I loved into a liar and a cheat. You helped make me look like a fool in front of my entire community. Mr. Devlin, I'm not finished." My voice was quiet, but there was steel in it. "You came to my house, to the home that I built with my own hands, and you offered to pay me off like I'm some kind of extortionist, like my marriage, my life, my dignity can be bought and paid for with a check." Trevor took a step back, finally recognizing the danger he was in. "So here's my counteroffer," I said. "Take your money and get the hell off my property. Stay away from my wife, stay away from me, and pray to whatever God rich boys pray to that I don't decide to pay a visit to your fiancé in Boston." The color drained from Trevor's face. "You wouldn't." "Try me." He stood there for another moment, trying to decide if I was bluffing. Apparently, he decided I wasn't. "This isn't over," he said as he backed toward his car. "Yes, it is," I replied. "You just don't know it yet." I watched him drive away, his expensive car disappearing around the corner like smoke. But I wasn't done with Trevor Lang, not by a long shot. That afternoon, I paid a visit to Rodriguez Towing to pick up some information about Erica's car. Miguel handed me the paperwork along with a knowing look. "She came by this morning to get it," he said. "Wasn't too happy about the storage fees." "I bet she wasn't." "Jack," Miguel said, his voice dropping to a confidential tone. "I heard about what happened. With your wife, I mean. I'm sorry, man." "Don't be sorry. Be helpful." Miguel raised an eyebrow. "What do you need?" "Information. You know that vintage Mustang that was parked outside my house this morning?" "The yellow one?" "Yeah, I saw it. Sweet ride." "I need to know where it's parked tonight." Miguel grinned. "I think I can help with that." By evening, I had Trevor's address. A high-end apartment complex in Portland's Arts District. The kind of place where the rent cost more per month than most people made in 3 months. I waited until midnight, then drove to the complex with a bag of tools and a head full of dark thoughts. Trevor's Mustang was parked in a covered garage, protected from the elements like a precious piece of art, which, in a way, it was. The car was a 1967 Shelby GT 500, probably worth more than my house. I spent the next hour giving Trevor's precious car the same treatment his affair had given my marriage. I didn't damage the engine. I'm not a monster. But the interior was another story. I slashed the leather seats with a utility knife, poured motor oil over the dashboard, and used a screwdriver to carve a simple message into the steering wheel: "Cheaters pay." Then I slashed all 4 tires for good measure. When I was finished, I stood back and admired my handiwork. The car looked like it had been attacked by a very angry, very thorough vandal, which, I suppose, it had been. I left a note on the windshield. "Hope you two can afford Uber." Sunday morning, my phone rang at 6 a.m. Trevor's voice was shaking with rage. "You psychotic son of a bitch. Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Good morning to you too, Trevor. How's the car?" "You destroyed it. $50,000 worth of damage." $50,000? That's funny. That's exactly what you offered me yesterday. What a coincidence. "I'm calling the police." "Go ahead. I'm sure they'll be very interested to hear about your 7-month affair with a married woman. I'm sure your fiancé will be interested too." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "What do you want?" Trevor asked finally. "I want you to disappear. I want you to go back to Boston and pretend you never heard the name Erica Devlin. I want you to stay out of my town, away from my wife, and out of my life. And if I don't, then next time I won't stop with the car." I hung up before he could respond. An hour later, Erica was at my door again, but this time she wasn't crying. This time she was furious. "Are you insane?" she screamed through the door. "Trevor called me. He told me what you did to his car." I opened the door and looked at her calmly. "Did he also tell you about the $50,000 he offered me to keep quiet about your affair?" That stopped her cold. "What?" "Your boyfriend came here yesterday morning with a checkbook. Wanted to pay me off. Thought he could buy his way out of this mess." Erica's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, understanding, and finally, hurt. He tried to pay you off?" $50,000. Cash money. All I had to do was pretend the last 7 months never happened." "What did you tell him?" "I told him to go to hell. Then I gave his car the same treatment you gave our marriage." Erica stared at me, and for the first time since this whole mess started, I saw something other than self-pity in her eyes. I saw recognition, understanding, maybe even a little bit of respect. "He really tried to pay you off," she said quietly. "He really did. And you said no." I said no. She stood there for a long moment, processing this information. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away. I watched her go, and I realized something had changed. Not between us. That was over, probably forever. But something had shifted in the balance of power in this whole situation. Trevor Lang had made a mistake. He'd shown his hand, revealed what kind of man he really was. And now Erica knew it too, which was going to make my next move even more satisfying. Monday morning brought news that spread through town faster than a grease fire. Trevor Lang's expensive Mustang had been found vandalized in his apartment garage, and somehow word had gotten out about the affair. I was having coffee at Duffy's pub when I overheard the conversation at the next table. $50,000 worth of damage, one man was saying. Seats slashed, oil everywhere, tires cut to ribbons. "Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy," his companion replied. "Rich boy from Boston thinks he can come to our town and steal our women. Jack Devlin's got some balls, I'll give him that." I kept my expression neutral, but inside I was smiling. The narrative was writing itself exactly the way I'd hoped. I wasn't the cuckolded husband anymore. I was the working man who'd fought back against the privileged outsider. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Meet me at the marina at noon. Come alone. T." Trevor was ready for round 2. Good. I finished my coffee and drove to Big Joe's marina. Joe was waiting for me at the dock, and he wasn't alone. 3 other guys from the neighborhood were with him, all construction workers, all friends of mine, all the kind of men who understood that some things were worth fighting for. "Heard you might have some trouble today," Joe said. "Nothing I can't handle." "Maybe, but we figured we'd stick around anyway. You know, in case you need someone to witness whatever conversation you're about to have." I nodded gratefully. In a small town, you need friends like this, people who'll stand with you when things get ugly. Trevor arrived at exactly noon, driving a rental car this time. He looked like he hadn't slept much, and his usual polished composure was nowhere to be seen. He got out of the car and walked toward me, his eyes darting nervously at Joe and the other men. I said, "Come alone," he said. This is a loan, I replied. These are my friends. They're just here to make sure our conversation stays civil. Trevor looked like he wanted to argue, but he was outnumbered and outclassed. These weren't corporate executives he could intimidate with lawyers and money. These were working men who'd grown up settling disputes with their fists. You destroyed my car, Trevor said. You destroyed my marriage. That's different. Is it? You took something that was precious to me and ruined it. I did the same thing to you. Trevor glanced around at the other men, then back at me. What do you want? Money? I already offered you $50,000. I don't want your money, Trevor. I want you gone. Gone? Out of Maine, back to Boston, away from Erica, away from me, away from this entire situation. You can't make me leave. Can I? I pulled out my phone and showed him a photograph I'd taken the night before. It showed Trevor's vandalized car, but more importantly, it showed the note I'd left on the windshield. Interesting evidence, don't you think? Clear proof that someone with knowledge of your affair was responsible for the damage to your car. Trevor's face went pale. You're blackmailing me. I'm giving you a choice. You can leave voluntarily, or I can make your life here very uncomfortable. How? I smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. Well, for starters, I could call your fiancée, Amanda Richardson, right? Daughter of State Senator Richardson? I bet she'd be very interested to hear about your 7-month affair with a married woman. Trevor's hands clenched into fists. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I could also call the local newspapers. Small-town papers love stories about rich outsiders seducing married women. Great human interest angle. That's defamation. Is it? Everything I'd tell them would be true? You did have an affair with Erica. You did meet her at the Riverside Inn. You did try to pay me off to keep quiet about it. Trevor looked around desperately, as if hoping someone would rescue him from this situation. But Joe and the other men just stared at him with expressions of barely contained hostility. What about Erica? Trevor asked finally. What if she doesn't want me to leave? Erica's not your problem anymore. She's mine. Yours. Trevor laughed bitterly. She doesn't want you either, Jack. She told me that herself. She said you were boring, predictable. She said she felt trapped in your little small-town life. The words hit like physical blows, but I kept my expression steady. Maybe she did say that. But she's still my wife, and she's still here, not running away to Boston with you. Because I told her it was over. Because you're a coward, I said quietly. You wanted the thrill of the affair, but when it came time to actually commit to something, you ran, just like you're going to run now. Trevor stared at me for a long moment, his face cycling through anger, frustration, and finally, defeat. Fine, he said. I'll go back to Boston, but this isn't over. Yes, it is, I replied, and if you're smart, you'll keep it that way. Trevor turned and walked back to his rental car without another word. I watched him drive away, and I knew I'd never see him again, but I wasn't done yet. That evening, I drove to Megan's apartment. Erica's car was parked outside, confirming that she was still staying with her so-called best friend. I knocked on the door and Megan answered, her face immediately shifting to a guilty expression. Jack, she said, what are you doing here? I need to talk to Erica. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't care what you think, Megan. You've been lying to me for 7 months. You've lost the right to have opinions about what's good for anyone. Megan stepped aside, and I walked into the apartment. Erica was sitting on the couch, looking small and defeated. She looked up when I entered, and I saw something in her eyes that I hadn't seen in months. Fear. Not fear of me exactly, but fear of what I represented. Fear of consequences. Fear of a future that she couldn't control or manipulate. Trevor's gone, I said without preamble. Gone? Back to Boston. He won't be coming back. Erica's face crumpled. What did you do? I gave him a choice. He could leave voluntarily, or I could make his life here very unpleasant. He chose to leave. You had no right. I had every right. My voice was louder than I'd intended, and both women flinched. I had every right to protect myself, my marriage, and my reputation. You two took that away from me for 7 months. Now I'm taking it back. Erica was crying now, but they weren't the manipulative tears she'd been using for the past week. These were tears of genuine loss, genuine grief. I loved him, she whispered. No, you didn't, I said. You loved the idea of him. You loved the fantasy of being with someone rich and successful and exciting. But you didn't love him, because if you had, you would have left me months ago. That's not true. Isn't it? You had 7 months to make a choice, Erica. 7 months to decide what you really wanted. And you chose to keep lying, keep sneaking around, keep having your cake and eating it too. I pulled the divorce papers from my jacket and set them on the coffee table. Sign them, I said. Jack, please. We can work this out. Trevor's gone now. We can start over. Start over? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Erica, you destroyed our marriage. You destroyed my trust. You destroyed 12 years of building a life together. There's no starting over from that. People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. A choice you made every day for 7 months. A choice you made every time you lied to me, every time you met him at that hotel, every time you came home and pretended to be the loving wife. I stood up, looking down at her tear-streaked face. Sign the papers, Erica. It's over. I left without waiting for her response. The next morning, Dave Morrison called to tell me that Erica had signed the divorce papers and dropped them off at his office. She also left this, he said, handing me an envelope with my name written on it in Erica's careful handwriting. I took the envelope but didn't open it. Whatever she had to say, I wasn't interested in hearing it. That afternoon, I drove past Megan's apartment and saw that Erica's car was gone. I called the house, but there was no answer. I checked her office, but her coworkers said she'd called in sick. It took me 2 days to find out that Erica had left town. Mrs. Haynes, ever the reliable source of neighborhood intelligence, told me that she'd seen Erica loading suitcases into her car early Wednesday morning. Looked like she was leaving for more than just a weekend, Mrs. Haynes said. I asked her where she was going, but she just said she needed to get away for a while. I felt nothing. No sadness, no relief, no anger, just a kind of empty satisfaction, like finishing a difficult construction project. The job was done, the problem was solved, and now I could move on to other things. But there was one more thing I needed to do. That evening, I finally opened Erica's letter. Jack, it began, I know you'll probably never forgive me, and I don't blame you. I know I've hurt you in ways that can't be undone, and I know that saying I'm sorry isn't enough. You were right about Trevor. You were right about everything. He didn't love me. He loved the excitement of the affair. When I told him I wanted us to be together for real, he panicked. He reminded me that he was engaged, that he had a reputation to protect. He made it clear that I was just a temporary distraction, not someone he'd ever build a real life with. I know that doesn't excuse what I did. I know it doesn't change the fact that I betrayed you, lied to you, and destroyed our marriage. But I want you to know that I realize now what I gave up. I had a good man who loved me, who built a beautiful home for us, who would have done anything for me, and I threw it all away for a fantasy. I'm leaving town for a while. I need time to figure out who I am and what I want from my life. I need to become the kind of person who deserves a second chance, even if that second chance isn't with you. I hope someday you can forgive me. Not for my sake, but for yours. I hope you can find happiness with someone who appreciates what an amazing man you are. I'm sorry, Jack, for everything. Erica. I read the letter twice, then walked to the fireplace and tossed it into the flames. Some apologies come too late. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. And some endings, no matter how painful, are exactly what they need to be. 3 months later, I was putting the finishing touches on the master bathroom renovation when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but I answered anyway. Jack Devlin. Mr. Devlin, this is Amanda Richardson. I believe you know who I am. I set down my tile cutter and walked out to the hallway. Amanda Richardson, Trevor's ex-fiancée. I know who you are, I said. What can I do for you? I wanted to thank you. That wasn't what I'd been expecting. Thank me? For telling me the truth about Trevor, about what kind of man he really is. I hadn't contacted Amanda Richardson. I'd threatened to, but in the end I hadn't needed to. Trevor had left town on his own, and I'd figured that was enough. I didn't call you, I said. No, but someone did. Someone who knew about Trevor's affair with your wife. Someone who thought I deserved to know what kind of man I was about to marry. Erica. It had to be. Wherever she'd gone, whatever she was doing, she'd found a way to make sure Trevor faced consequences for his actions. I'm sorry you had to find out that way, I said. I'm not. I'm grateful. Do you know what it's like to discover that the man you're planning to spend your life with is a liar and a cheat? It's devastating. But do you know what's worse? Discovering it after you're married. I thought about my own situation, about the 7 months of lies and betrayal I'd endured. Yeah, I said. I know exactly what that's like. I called off the engagement immediately, threw his ring back at him and told him to get out of my life. My father wanted to have him beaten up, but I convinced him that public humiliation would be more effective. Public humiliation? Amanda laughed, and there was genuine pleasure in the sound. I may have mentioned Trevor's affair to a few people in Boston social circles. Amazing how fast gossip travels when it involves the son of a prominent real estate developer. I bet. His business is suffering too. Turns out that investors don't like putting money behind men with questionable character. Who knew? I found myself smiling for the first time in weeks. Karma's a beautiful thing. It really is. Anyway, I wanted you to know that Trevor got what he deserved, and I wanted to thank you for standing up for yourself. A lot of men would have just rolled over and taken it. I'm not most men. No, you're not. Your wife was a fool to give up a man like you. After Amanda hung up, I went back to work on the bathroom, but I couldn't stop thinking about our conversation. Trevor had lost his fiancée, his reputation, and his business prospects. Erica had lost her marriage, her home, and her place in the community. Megan had lost most of her friends after word got out about her role in covering up the affair. And me? I'd lost a wife who'd betrayed me, but I'd gained something more valuable, my self-respect. The divorce was finalized 2 weeks later. Erica didn't contest any of the terms, and she didn't ask for anything beyond her personal belongings. Dave Morrison handled everything efficiently and professionally, and by the end of the month, I was officially a single man again. I celebrated by finishing the master bathroom renovation and starting work on the kitchen. Spring arrived early that year, and with it came a sense of renewal that I hadn't felt in years. I threw myself into work, taking on bigger projects, expanding my business. Word had gotten around about how I'd handled the situation with Erica and Trevor, and surprisingly, it had been good for business. Apparently, people respected a man who stood up for himself. One Saturday morning in April, I was at the hardware store picking up supplies when I ran into Sarah Chen from Erica's old yoga class. "Jack," she said, her face lighting up with genuine pleasure. "How are you? You look great." "Thanks, Sarah. I'm doing well." "I heard about the divorce. I'm sorry things didn't work out." "I'm not," I said, and I realized I meant it. Best thing that could have happened to me. Sarah studied my face as if trying to determine whether I was putting on a brave front or actually meant what I said. "You know," she said finally, "my sister just moved back to town. She's a nurse at the hospital, recently divorced herself. I think you two might hit it off." 6 months ago, the thought of dating someone new would have seemed impossible. But now, "What's her name?" I asked. "Lisa. Lisa Chen. She's nothing like Erica. She's honest, straightforward, no games. She's been through her own divorce, so she understands what it's like to rebuild your life. Maybe you could introduce us sometime." Sarah's smile could have powered the entire town. "I was hoping you'd say that. Are you free for dinner tomorrow night?" That's how I found myself sitting across from Lisa Chen at a quiet restaurant in town, having the first honest conversation I'd had with a woman in years. Lisa was everything Sarah had promised. Straightforward, intelligent, with a quick wit and an infectious laugh. She was also beautiful in a completely different way than Erica had been. Where Erica was polished and image-conscious, Lisa was natural and unpretentious. "So," she said over dessert, "Sarah told me about your divorce. Sounds like it was pretty dramatic." That's one way to put it. My divorce was the opposite, boring as hell. My ex-husband was a good man. We just grew apart. No affairs, no drama, just two people who realized they wanted different things from life. That sounds almost civilized. Lisa laughed. It was. We're still friends, actually, but I have to admit, there's something to be said for going out with a bang instead of a whimper. Trust me, the whimper is better. We talked until the restaurant closed, covering everything from our careers to our families to our hopes for the future. When I walked her to her car, she turned to face me with a serious expression. "Jack, I like you, I really do. But I need you to know that I'm not interested in being anyone's rebound relationship. I've been through one divorce, and I'm not interested in casual dating just for the sake of it." "What are you interested in?" "Something real, something honest, something built on mutual respect and genuine affection." I looked at this remarkable woman standing in front of me, and I realized that for the first time in months, I was thinking about the future instead of the past. "I think I can work with that," I said. Our first kiss was nothing like the passionate, desperate kisses I'd shared with Erica in the early days of our relationship. It was gentle, tentative, full of promise rather than demand. It was perfect. 6 months later, Lisa moved into the house I'd spent years renovating. Not because we were rushing into anything, but because we'd both realized that we'd found something worth building a life around. A year after that, I proposed to her in the kitchen I'd rebuilt from scratch. The same kitchen where I'd first realized that my marriage to Erica was over. Lisa said yes, and this time I knew I was marrying the right woman. We had a small wedding at Big Joe's Marina, surrounded by friends who'd stood by me during the darkest period of my life. Mrs. Haynes cried during the ceremony. Joe gave a speech that was equal parts touching and hilarious, and Dave Morrison served as my best man. Erica wasn't there, of course. I'd heard through the small-town grapevine that she'd moved to California, taken a job with a tech company in Silicon Valley. Megan had moved away too, apparently unable to handle the social ostracism that came with her role in the affair. Trevor Lang had disappeared from public view entirely after his business collapsed, and his reputation was destroyed. The last I'd heard, he was working for his father's real estate company, a significant step down from his previous status as a rising tech entrepreneur. I didn't wish any of them ill, but I didn't waste time thinking about them either. They were part of my past, and my past was exactly where they belonged. As Lisa and I danced to our first song as husband and wife, I thought about the text message that had started it all. "Something came up, I'll explain soon, relax." I'd replied, "No need to explain." And I'd been right. There had been no need to explain, no need to understand, no need to forgive or forget, or try to rebuild something that had been broken beyond repair. Sometimes the best response to betrayal isn't anger or revenge or attempts at reconciliation. Sometimes the best response is simply to walk away and build something better. As the song ended and Lisa smiled up at me, I realized that's exactly what I'd done. I'd built something better, something honest, something real, something worth keeping. The end. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.